What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Today I'm making ricotta cheese gnocchi with sunflower seed pesto sauce. The G is silent. We're making pesto. First thing to pesto, not sure if you guys really knew this or not, but it's Parmesan cheese. So I'm using this box grater and the small side of the box grater to grate up this cheese into a fine powder. Now for this pesto, I'm using sunflower seeds because traditional pesto uses pine nuts, and personally, I'm allergic to pine nuts. So if you're allergic to pine nuts too, try using sunflower seeds. But if you're allergic to seeds, you can easily not use any in its place. The base flavor of every pesto, pretty much, is basil. So I'm going to rip off some of these leaves from this stem and then roughly chop it. Now, if you're using a really large food processor, you might not need to chop it. In that case, don't even chop your basil. Just add it to a food processor. And to that food processor, you want to add the grated Parmesan cheese. Now, if you're curious to know the denominations here, the link is in the description down below. Then add your toasted pine nuts followed by some garlic. Now, again, because I'm using this smaller food processor, I'm going to microplane my garlic. But if you have a really powerful one, you can just throw those cloves right in. Now the next step is adding our olive oil, but before we add the olive oil, what you want to do is pulse the contents of the food processor. It breaks down all the essentials, it gets all the flavors introduced to one another before the oil is actually added. Then you gotta season it with some salt and pepper, or season it to taste. Now, maybe you guys are curious, what the heck are they talking about when they say season to taste? Well, give it a little taste. You see, maybe it needs a little bit of salt, maybe it needs a little bit of pepper, maybe it doesn't need either of those things. Adjust accordingly. All right, it's gnocchi time. To this bowl, I'm going to add some room temperature ricotta cheese. Ricotta cheese has kind of the same texture as cottage cheese meets cream cheese. I guess it kind of is already a cream cheese. I digress. Then to that bowl, you're gonna add some Parmesan cheese followed by an egg. Grab a mini whisk or a regular whisk if you don't have a mini one, and whisk this bad boy up until it's properly combined. Then you're gonna wanna season it with some more salt and pepper. Now, taste it a bit. Don't be afraid of the raw egg. A little taste isn't gonna hurt you. You see what we did there? We seasoned with salt and pepper to taste. All right, here comes the fun part. Now's where we add the flour, and this gnocchi recipe actually comes together. All right, now here's the deal. Maybe it's a little bit humid in your house. Maybe there's a lot of moisture running around the air. Don't be afraid to add a little bit more flour, because what we're trying to achieve here is a dough-like consistency. Now here's what I mean by that. Once the ricotta cheese, egg, Parmesan cheese, and flour all come together in the bowl, you want to put it on a floured surface and then knead it. You want to knead it like you're kneading a piece of actual bread dough. The thing with gnocchi is we got to separate it and then roll it into snakes. And if the dough is too dry, it's not going to roll into a snake. If it's too wet, it's going to stick to your hands. And the key fix for that is just adjusting accordingly by dusting some more flour on top of the dough balls. Now's where knowing how to play with your food comes in handy. You want to roll this to a snake. The snake has to be about an inch thick. Then, using a knife or a fancy cutter like this, cut it into 1-inch pieces. Each piece should resemble a pillow. Here's the deal. You could easily take these pieces and throw them in a pot of boiling water, and that would be delicious gnocchi. Or you could take the back of a fork and press them down like this. Now, I'm not just doing that for the design. The reason I'm doing that is because when there's holes and little nooks and crannies in each one of these gnocchis, the flavor of the sauce later on is going to get stuck in it. And what does that mean? That means each bite is going to possess a delicious sunflower pesto flavor. Oh my goodness. We're at the step where we're starting to boil water, which means we're one step away from actually eating this pesto gnocchi. Now, if you don't know this already, whenever you're boiling anything, I'm talking potatoes, pasta, rice, season your water with salt. Now, boiling gnocchi is not the same as boiling regular pasta. For this, we're not necessarily going to time it, but rather keep an eye on it. You see how all these little pillows are floating to the top? Well, as soon as the top is completely covered in floating gnocchis, that's when you know they're done. Now, before you extract the gnocchi from the water, make sure you save some of that pasta water. Heat a frying pan to medium-high heat and add some of that pesto. Then, once the pesto starts to bubble a little bit, Add about a half a cup of the pasta water. Mix the pasta water and the pesto together until it all forms a sauce. Then add your gnocchi to the frying pan. While it's still on medium-high heat, mix it all together and coat the gnocchis fully. You're looking for each one of those little pillows of deliciousness to get coated in that pesto sauce. Oh my goodness, it's almost time to eat these bad boys. You want to plate it and then take some Parmesan cheese and shave as much as you want on top of these gnocchis. Maybe you like a lot of Parmesan cheese. Maybe you don't want any Parmesan cheese because there's Parmesan cheese in the pesto. Do you? Whoa, not only is this electrifyingly green from that sunflower seed pesto sauce, but it looks amazing, and the residual heat has melted the Parmesan cheese on top. This looks really good. You know, I decided to try and make this gnocchi recipe a different way. Instead of using potatoes, I supplemented it with some ricotta cheese. And doing my research, when you combine that with some egg, Parmesan cheese, and flour, you end up with a dough. And then when you take that dough and you roll it into a snake and then cut it up into little pillows of deliciousness and boil it, you get this, a ricotta gnocchi. It's like my mouth is getting comfortable with these little pillows, these little ricotta cheese pillows. If you're used to eating potato gnocchi, you know that you get a little bit of a bite. It's not just biting into mashed potatoes, and in this case, it's not just biting into ricotta cheese. You get a little bit of a chew, and that's from the flour, but you get a lot of texture. You get some of the crunchiness from the sunflower seeds inside the pesto. All in all, this has just got a whole lot of flavor. If you guys want to make this at home, check out the link in the description down below. It'll take you to my recipe website, recipechampions.com, where I publish at least one recipe every single week. I got this whole plate to eat, and I'm not even mad at it. Bye. Hope you guys enjoyed that video. If you want to become a recipe champion in your own home, head over to recipechampions.com for all my published recipes. You can learn how to make crazy things like Fruity Pebbles cheesecakes or even an Eggs Benedict burrito. Go check it out and learn how to turn yourself into a recipe champion.